Hello and welcome back. The next talk will be given by Holger Levsen about preserving other build artifacts. Give a warm welcome applause.
Hello everybody, thanks for being here. I will talk about preserving other build artifacts, or will not talk, this is a BOF. I just prepared a small introduction. So you know this stuff, I skip this part. Has everybody seen one of my talks or other people's talk about reproducible builds and knows what this is about? Yay, some people. Who knows something about the Debian archive kit DAC? A few people. Great. Debian build D infrastructure. Yay. Depackage dist add file. Do you know about this? One person. Great. I get to the topic at hand very soon. I provide some context. So reproducible builds, introduction, source code is freely available. Most people install binaries. And we don't know really how this corresponds. That's why we want reproducible builds. And we have this definition, when is a build reproducible? We need the source artifacts, we need the build instructions and the environment, and then we have the artifacts out of this. And this is the primary build output, are the deb files. And the build logs, unit test results, autopackage test results, and other build artifacts are out of scope of this definition. It's not part of this. And to get to 100% reproducible builds, I said yesterday or Monday we need to change policy, and we can whitelist some packages for now, but we don't want to whitelist packages forever. And whitelist are just a means to achieve that goal eventually. And the policy part I had also, we want to get there, it will take some time. Then we still have these violations which we want to get rid of. And so let's get to these other build artifacts. I think that was a very quick intro. I hope you're not bored yet. So build artifacts are the deb files, and there's one and only one build log file. And people who need other artifacts invented some workarounds which make the package unreproducible because they store the build artifacts in the deb file. And the other workaround is just to do a local build and get these artifacts again. But that's clumsy and time-consuming, and it's also not the same thing. And so Matthias Klose, Doku, wrote this wiki page where he documented this problem a bit, or a bit more. And so if you haven't visited this wiki page, please do. And so Matthias has two packages. Binutils builds the binutils dev package, which is unreproducible because it contains these other build artifacts. And gccX builds gccX test results, which is also unreproducible because it contains these build artifacts. And we cannot whitelist these packages forever. It's stupid. And we don't want to ignore some packages. Oops. Yeah. So there's more than one build log. And of course you can concatenate this together, but then you have 400 megabytes or 200 megabytes of build log, and that's completely unusable. There's also more. There's config log and config status, which again you could output, but not good. There's sometimes also preprocessed source for compiler errors, and again. And there's test results from unit tests during the build, which get lost. And more test logs, and the wiki page even has more examples. And what doesn't work is to use Salsa CI, because we want the results from the real builds and not from some CI runs. And the auto-package test mechanism also doesn't work because auto-package tests are run with the debs which were produced, so we need something else. So the idea came up to use depackage dist add file, which can be used to add other files to Debian files so that they are then referenced in the changes file, and those they are included in the upload. This is what we do with build info files. And the problem there is they end in this by hand queue, which is not widely known from FTP masters, and they need to be processed by hand or by a script. For build info files, there's a script which takes them away. But also these build info files, they are not really accessible. And there's a bit problem. This doesn't work for failed builds, but we have nothing for failed builds at the moment, so this would be an improvement anyway. So we only need DAC to accept those files, create a script which takes these by hand files and make them available somewhere. It's almost easy. Except for build info files, this has been done, but they are not made public. They're available for Debian developers on Corsair, and then I wrote a script which imports them from Corsair, puts them on another server, and makes them available. It's a workaround, but it works. So maybe we can have this for build info files as well. And my idea would be to have this now or soon for experimental and for unstable after the Trixie release, but maybe even now. I don't know. Thank you. Now we can discuss this.
So if you limit yourself or if you implement a solution for successful builds only, and so what would be the outlook to get that extended for failed builds? Because that would be a completely other approach.
Yes, but we don't let. I would still first discuss it for successful builds because we don't have anything for failed builds at the moment as well.
Well, when you compare to auto-package tests, then you have these artifacts independent if you have a successful or a failing auto-package test. They are always there.
Yes, but that is because it uses on the build while we are creating. And let's discuss the successful case first, maybe, and then get to the problem. Or we can also start with that problem.
Yeah. So for example, for the GCC compiler errors, or that's information that cannot be stored then, because that always causes a failing build, and then you don't have any possibility to get that from the build.
But that's the case now as well.
Well, yes, but
or what would be your idea to solve this for failed builds, or anybody else's idea?
Well, I think for failed builds it might actually be easier, because for a successful build, if you want to get it into DAC, it needs to be correct, it needs to be signed, everything needs to accept it. While for a failed build, you need somewhere in the build infrastructure, somewhere you can dump the file and then have a way to read it, and it doesn't need to stay there for very long. You just need to have time to download it as a maintainer to see what went wrong. But I think that's a separate issue, and it requires looking into what happens on the build infrastructure when the build fails. I think if it succeeds, it just signs and uploads to FTP master or an upload server. The files could be uploaded somewhere else if that's configured and failed. I think it's a different issue, but it should be looked at from the wanna build side.
So before everything else, if a build, this needs to be implemented in SBuild, and SBuild, I mean, you can do a post build hook if it fails, I suppose, but that's kind of very specific. There was Simon McVitie that did write a draft for SBuild to make it export some artifacts. I also wrote. Like this is partially implemented as well in pbuilder as similarly, but I'm pretty sure in both cases this code is only triggered for successful builds. So there is that step as well that needs to be taken care of. So you would like have different upload targets if there was a failed build and a successful build.
So you would
One download.
I think you get the failed build logs only anyway for things that are built on the wannabe build network, because if a maintainer has a failed build, they likely wouldn't upload and go through it before they push anything to the archive. So I think it's the failed build are specifically to porting issues potentially, and not in general build errors. And I think what you said, the logs from the successful builds are the more important, because those that you get from the wanna build can also, it doesn't interfere with the other parts.
Right. Just to note that the one use case, I'm pretty sure it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Matthias, it's for packages that, for example, enable the build suite, the test suite, but doesn't make it failing. So the package is built correctly anyway, and they get like some bunch of test artifacts, some test logs, some testing bits, so they can like fix the test suite after. And the package is built fine, but it needs these extra things to make it correct.
I mean, currently we just have the build log, and everybody is trying to stuff stuff into the build log. I mean, I think some years ago, DebConf implemented dumping the config.log on a failed build, but that's exactly such a build artifact which we have. And so I have some packages where you don't have just one config.log, but you have 20. And so DebConf doesn't support that, so I dump all manually. And then you have to look, search for the correct build log, because you have parallel builds. If you see test failures in GNOME packages, so you often see some message down there, please look at the details in test-summary.log. Haha, okay, so now you have to, and it's not dumped because the location is obscure, so that would be another artifact which would be nice to have for a failed build. And so you can see or find a lot of things that make sense to have in a failed build. So even usually test suites are not verbose by default, and store some stuff in files. So again, makes that a build artifact.
I think another use case is also when there's a new library version or a new compiler version or whatever, and there's many packages rebuilt, and then there's 100 failures or something. It's not just uploads.
If I could share my view of like kind of ideal implementation for me, no idea if it's best, it will be all of these outside of the FTP scope and only unbuilded. This, of course, requires a lot of like infrastructure changes in how things are done, because currently the build daemons upload via, I think they upload via FTP still. So. Yeah, they don't do SCP. So they upload the artifacts via FTP to the upload server, and then they email the log to wanna build, unless that's changed in the. I don't feel, yeah. So they still email the build log to the wanna build server. And that's not a good way to transfer big files. So, so my view will be like for wanna build to add support for extra, for I don't know, like one build artifact that could have like a tarball or something, and associate it with each build that could expire, like autopackage test does. But it would require like changes from how the build daemons communicate to wanna build, and then wanna build needs to learn about this, and it's quite a bit of work. But this will be my ideal solution if they wanna build, people will do it.
Yeah. So I mean, and then the package. Well, for failed builds, maybe you can do some automatic stuff in dpkg or in debhelper to build such a tarball, or you add well, have some hooks where you add stuff to the tarball manually or yourself.
Yeah, I could imagine that each piece of developer would, for example, copy files into the directory, and then at the final, a hook at the final stage is just tarball it all and make it someplace that sbuild or pbuild or whatever can then copy it out.
It's a pity that no vulnerable people are here.
Yeah, would really love to have a Holger in here.
But your implementation in pbuilder, how far is that?
So the pbuilder implementation is just a configuration item that works only on successful builder, and you define a globe of files that are exported together with the changes file. So it will get all the changes file and related files, so the debs, and the extra files you mentioned. And sbuild has a fairly...
And that's a global configuration.
Yes. I mean, you can define it as at call time as well. But sbuild is different in a way that the build defines what it does. Let me check it. Yes. Where is it? Yeah, it's similar. So there is an artifact pattern, and you specify a globe of things that it downloads, and then this conceptually it's similar. But I mean, the sbuild version is still a merge request, not merged, so it's up for edit.
I think we can raise the priority.
Right.
But like there's a specific use case for it, and for me it's already, I like that we've now getting to somewhere where we can have the failed builds as well, which doesn't work with this dpackage add file approach.
Yeah. Besides
But you were talking about getting the wanna-build infrastructure to know about the tarball and handling it. An alternative way might be that you have some service that accepts the tarball, and then the builders just have to have credentials for it, and you dump it there. They can just say this is the ID or the path where you can find the tarball, and wanna-build doesn't have to know about it. The infrastructure only has to allow the upload to that specific service, and then the database of wanna-build doesn't need to know. It just needs to be in the log. Here is your file. If you're trying to find it, you can find it, and that will require less infrastructure changes in wanna-build.
But that requires network access for the builders, and the builders don't have network access.
oh yeah, they do. I mean, after the build, they can upload.
Right, yeah.
So it will require changes to what's called again, to build did.
Yes.
That piece of program. Opy builded, both.
Build D and wanna build.
No, so wanna build is the server that the orchestrating part. Then there is build did that is run on the build machine, and then there is PyBuildIt, which is like a rewrite of buildIt.
But it's the same source.
No, they are two different things. Okay. And they are both running because it's in testing phase for, I don't know, decade now. Sorry?
Relative.
Yes.
I also think the PyBuildT is mainly used on buildties that have been set up recently, and the old ones are still running the old implementation because it works and nobody replaced it. So that would need coordination with, I think it was Phil Kern who was working on that years ago to see what direction they want to go, and if they want to go to one of them, it needs only to be implemented in one of them.
Yeah, so I suppose that one step could be to define a service that could accept uploads and publish them and expire them, which is...
Yeah. Maybe we should write this down on this wiki page now. Else we'll have had a nice BOF and forget about it.
We will discuss it again next year.
Yeah, we'll probably discuss it again until it's implemented, but to discuss it less, it helps to write it down.
So would it make sense to just, well, experiment with the package build itself to construct the tarball, for a failed build and for a successful build.
So for that, I think we need to define like one path in the build structure that as build and pbuilder, what like the build containering can pick the file out of.
Well, yes. So I like the idea that you have some directory where you collect all your artifacts that you want to store, and then whether you compress it yourself or if it's up to the build team, that doesn't matter. But so how do you get all your artifacts inside the tarball? And that has to be some packaging support. And that's something that we also can start experimenting with.
Right. I just mean that we need to define this path, I suppose, inside Debian somewhere. So Debian/artifacts. Yeah. Okay, package can just dump stuff in there, and then sbuild and pbuilder will suck it out.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking notes.
It just occurred to me that I can do this just now. So
incidentally, so this is the Debian side. Should we bother thinking if this will affect Ubuntu in some ways? Should we not bother at all?
Well, I mean, it would be another blob or another tarball which could be stored in the librarian. Yes, but I'm not aware of anything that could go wrong in Launchpad itself. So, I mean, if you construct the tarball and it's thrown away, that would not be ideal, but at least builds don't break.
And should this build and pbuilder and etc. create this tarball always? Should we opt in for the callers? Because it will be an extra file that will be like hard to clean up, for example. If you did the DCMD RM, the changes file, for example, now it will leave potentially big files.
Well, you always have a build log.
If you want to.
Well, it's stored somewhere. I mean, maybe so maybe yes. So maybe for a successful build, it should be opt-in. If you have a failed build, I think we just try to collect everything we want to and store it in the tarball, and then we don't have no need anymore to dump everything in the build log.
Well, for the buildies, if there's a builder that doesn't have a configuration to do something with the file, on such a machine it doesn't make any sense to build this file. So in in sbuild and pbuilder, it should be an option to say I want to have the file or not, and then on what the default should be on user machines, I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that. On the buildies, it just needs to be configured. If that
For successful builds.
For both of them, if it fails and the machine is not configured to upload the file somewhere, then there's no point. But the goal should be that the builders should all be configured to have this file and then do something with it. But I think it would make sense to have it configurable, that if you just run builds to see if something builds and you're not interested that the tarball isn't created, that can just be an option, and I don't care about the default.
You probably want that only for some packages and not for all 30,000.
No. Well, for example, do you know which packages produce compiler errors?
No, but I know that 3,000 Perl packages don't.
But you could say, if you define a directory, the rule could be the directory is not auto-created. Something that wants to dump artifacts should create the directory, and if the directory isn't there, then, or is empty, yes, then there is no artifacts and the tarball isn't created because there's no point in creating the tarball that's empty. Then for all packages that are there now, they won't have it, and if people start to create useful artifacts or useless artifacts, they will go into the tarball and then they are there. And then there's no backwards compatibility issue. And if you fill this directory with stuff and the build doesn't know about it, for instance, for a backport, it will just get thrown away with everything else. You won't have it, but it won't cause any issues.
Yeah, and anyway, I mean, even if this directory is created for every package, it's kind of fine because if we just upload it to some server and this accept everything and they expire, it's like whatever. It doesn't create an extra relevant load, in my opinion. Yeah, because I totally imagine all the developer pieces. Like for example, you mentioned the developer dumping configuration errors. So maybe the H auto-configure could also copy every pieces in there, and etc.
So, do we agree that these packages, these artifacts, can and should expire after some time? Like they will not be useful after a year.
What's the expire date for auto package tests? I mean, it should be the same.
I'm sure you can find it, and you can just write the same expiry of auto package.
Why it's the same as auto package?
I think in auto packages, the main reason that there's an expiry is because of otherwise it keeps growing and the storage will get full or the credits. But if it's useful to keep them longer and there's space, they can be kept longer. I think it should. If people run into issues where they see I regularly need to debug stuff and the useful information was gone by the time I wanted to look at it, then that would be new information and it can be extended. If people start using it, they might discover useful ways to use this that we don't think about now. And people could copy it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think for auto package tests, it's longer at least than 4 weeks. So that's my...
Yeah, but it's an implementation detail.
Also, I mean, I think it could be reasonable to define some way to, like, developers can tick on artifacts for permanent storage. Similar to such a CI, that also the external artifacts expired, but you can mark them as permanent.
Right. That requires a more sophisticated service, but yeah.
It's like a wish list on top of wish list on top of wish list.
About expiring, the artifact shouldn't be sort of considered to expire similar to the other artifacts. So when we archive a release, then also...
But we have snapshots, so they never expire in a way.
Right. But maybe that doesn't make sense to keep them archived in that sense, depending on if they are needed for reproducible build information.
I think we can define
but the build info is already in snapshot, right? Or
the build info file is separate from this.
Can I ask, in software supply chain aspect, in software supply chain security aspect, recently the output of build log or such output in building is needed to signed and supplied to the end users for enable users can track the supply chain information. Do you have any plan to supply such output logs, signing and providing in the some kind of like the SLSA framework format? The name is a bit confusing, but it's called it's Salsa, but it's SLSA, the defined in as a framework.
This is about artifacts mostly used for developers for debugging the builds.
Finally, for end users, end user want to get the transparency in the software supply chain, and especially, for example, in my company, we have our original distribution picking up some Debian package binaries and also some software build, source code build packages and making it together and make our original distributions. And our customers are using that distribution. And if the supply chain security is required more in future, customers will require us to give the all software supply chain related information. And currently, like, we are supplying SBOM files, and also, but ideally, the generating SBOM in building time is best, because someone can change the data. So making the SBOM and also the build log in building time and signing them and giving that for the users is important in supply chain aspect. I think currently not the end user requiring so much, but in future it can happen. So I'm interested in if Debian project have a plan to giving such data with signing and supplying such things to users.
Yes, Debian has interest in making this available, but we have these build info files, which basically are SBOM files. Mm-hmm. They contain the sources and all the used libraries and other parts. So we already have this. This BOF is about build logs and other build artifacts, which have nothing to do with SBOM files. Mm-hmm. But Debian already produces this. SBOM is the software bill of materials, mm-hmm. and this is all provided by build info files already today. Mm-hmm. So that is already there. We want to have the build logs as well.
I see.
I'm happy to talk about this SBOM aspect later.
So is there some agreement that we want to just collect the stuff in a directory or in a tarball first? So that's the one thing where we can start work. And another step, which could be independent of that, what to do with that tarball after the build finishes, failed or successful.
Personally, I very much like the directory approach because it requires no package configuration in a way. We can have the developer dump possibly useful stuff in there, or whatever library or build tool we use, which could be nice. And it will be the same for all packages, which is always also a plus for me. So one other thing to define would be the name directly inside, the name of the file that is outside that the tooling will export, the cast build will export.
So, but then at least we should, or we have to talk with DebConf about hooks. No, to collect artifacts after a failed build, and so maybe a hook to collect artifacts after a successful build.
It will be nest build, not the package, in my mind.
Sorry,
it will, like this integration will be in nest build, not in the package.
So, but SBuild would call some target in the Debian rules file.
No, it would just look at like this directory exists, right? It's not empty, right? Okay, run tar.
How do you get that stuff into it?
But that would be that the build target or whatever target creates that directory.
Right.
So you have in Debian rules defined that you create this file and copy the files over or not.
Right, but that has to be integrated in DebConf then.
No, like you have your
For the case of a failed build, maybe, because if
okay, you are running your build. You make your build save any useful file inside this directory.
Stop. How?
How? Okay, that you need to do. I don't know.
Yeah, but then I have to do that manually in every package. That's something I don't want.
But there could be a deb helper.
Yeah.
Thing which is called DH_.
Right. So DH auto configure besides dumping all the the CMake file, which is very long in the build log. You could also copy them inside this directory.
So, I mean, there are cases where an artifact is completely independent of the package and the build system. So, like I have the pre-processed source of a compiler is. So it's there's a file in /tmp cc1 something. So how do I pick that up? So there should be a hook for compiler ISs. I mean, for the case that a GNOME test suite fails, so there's a hint on the output log. Please see details in testsummary.log. How do I get that?
So in the GNOME case, so your GCC case is obviously special. It will be handled by yourself.
But that GCC case is one of the reasons why I'm here.
But for example, the GNOME cases, I imagine the autotest would, which knows the various test runners that are there. It will know, okay, so this package is running, I think it's called gtest, I think. And okay, gtest creates, on failure, it creates this file. So on failure, I will copy this file in this directory and then make the build fail.
Right, and you would implement that in deb helper?
Or whatever DH add-on runs this stuff. So you talk about all the preprocessed files. I don't know. Can GCC be configured from the outside to store all the pieces on failure somewhere?
Well, they have to be stored in one file, in one locate directory. They are stored in /tmp. Right. But usually you don't want to configure every tool OpenJDK has something like the crash dumps. And these are, I'm not sure where they are stored, but that would be another candidate for that.
Right. If, for example, they support some environment variable configuration style, we could have something export this, so they store the crash into this place.
Yes, but then you have to configure every tool for that to be able to store build other artifacts. That's something I don't like as either.
But I think if we come up with a way to have something working, then people will come up with standard wrappers that deal with this. For instance, if you build some random package and you get an ICE in GCC, that it will copy the result somewhere or something like that. I think once the infrastructure is there, people will find a way to streamline it, and so that you don't have to do it manually every time.
Well, yes, but I mean, I don't want to change every package that builds C or C++ sources to store that build artifact manually.
No, but that's what I'm saying. If once it's there, people will find ways to do this automatically. So I think we should. So, for instance, in DebHelper, I think we should get to the point where it exists, and then we can improve on it.
I think it should. I guess it would be enough to have that really in DebHelper, not in DPackage. Because to me, it feels better there, and all relevant packages here, I think, use DebHelper. No. No? Which package doesn't use DebHelper? Which one? The source is there, so tell it to us if you know.
Oh, you don't remember all the packages that we found that were manually creating the MD5 sounds file?
Ignorance and forgetting is a bliss. I guess I agree it would be easier to have it in DPackage, but I think it would be more difficult to get it in DPackage.
But rather,
I don't think so. But
what do you imagine being in DPackage? Like, what's your vision for a hook in DPackage? What will it do?
Well, it it would be. Yeah, I mean, it would be a hook which would be called after a successful or a failed build, and and maybe there are plugins for every kind of artifact. So for compiler ISIS, there's a plugin that is able to look for this kind of stuff. For OpenJDK, it would be the hs.r file, which is searched. I mean, now we have config.logs in dumped to the build log, but you could have a hook collecting these as well.
Right. And you would like this in the package so you don't have to deal with the debugger and all the packages before.
Yeah, and of course I could have package-specific hooks where I explicitly want to store stuff. But for all the cases where, I want to catch a third-party error, which is a compiler error, so it would be nice to have that somewhere independent from the package itself.
But what would the hook looking for an ICE do?
On ICE?
Yeah, does GC leave something somewhere?
So it would just look in TMP for CC1, whatever .out files, and copy them over. And so there, I don't want to have anything to do in any C or C++ package. And so for test suites where you know you are failing some tests by intent, it's good to have these test results. So I would like to copy all the .log and .sum files into the package, into the artifact tarball. being able to investigate without having to rebuild or do a 2 or 3 day rebuild on the Debian infrastructure. So that's my main motivation why I'm storing those.
And it's not possible to export some variable generically, maybe by DPackage, to have to indicate to GCC, to OpenJDK to store them as well, to store the mid file somewhere.
So yes, I could add a local patch for that. But then again, you have to patch every tool for every artifact to do that. So I'm not sure if that, yes, it could be done, but I'm not sure if that's the correct approach.
I think, unfortunately, we need to wrap this up now. But thankfully, thank you for having this discussion. Thanks for the video team for recording this. I hope we can build upon this and make further progress and getting these build DPackage, whatever, 100 people involved to solve this. Thank you.